still remember the exact moment everything changed. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday when Dr. Harrison burst into the observation room, his face drained of color. I'd been working the night shift at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, monitoring incoming data from the James Webb Space Telescope. Just routine stuff, or so I thought. "Thomas, look at this," he whispered, his voice cracking as he slid a tablet across my desk. The image on the screen was blurry but unmistakable, something massive floating in the asteroid belt, something that shouldn't be there. That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks since I've had a decent night's sleep. 3 weeks since I started looking over my shoulder at every shadow. And 3 weeks since the government agents arrived and everything went to hell. My name is Dr. Thomas Reed. I'm, or rather was, a senior data analyst for NASA's Deep Space Imaging Division. I had a nice apartment in Columbia, Maryland, a decent salary, and a life that made sense. Now I'm typing this from a motel room with blackout curtains drawn, using a burner laptop I bought with cash. I don't know how much time I have left before they find me. What I'm about to share will sound insane. I wouldn't believe it myself if I hadn't seen the evidence with my own eyes, touched the data with my own hands. The object Harrison showed me that night wasn't just unexpected, it was impossible. And what happened after we reported it was even worse. I need to get this information out before they silence me too. Harrison is already gone. Car accident is what they're calling it. Bullshit. He was the most careful driver I knew. The James Webb Telescope wasn't just studying distant stars and galaxies like they told the public. There was a classified directive to map the asteroid belt in unprecedented detail, officially to identify potential mining opportunities. But what it found out there, lurking between Mars and Jupiter, is something no one was prepared for. It's not a comet. It's not an asteroid. It's not natural at all. And from what I've pieced together before fleeing, it's the size of New York City. It's giving off heat signatures and electromagnetic pulses that defy our understanding of physics. And worst of all, it's changing course. Deliberately. God help us all when it arrives. My hands still shake when I think about those first images. After Harrison left that night, I couldn't help but dig deeper. The observation room was empty except for me. The soft blue glow of monitors casting shadows across the walls. Outside, the Goddard campus was silent, most buildings dark except for security lights dotting the perimeter. I pulled up the raw data streams from Webb's primary imaging array. The telescope had been focused on a section of the asteroid belt as part of Dr. Kapoor's research on potential resource-rich bodies. Kapoor had been oddly tight-lipped about this particular observation window, which wasn't like him. Now I understood why. The object was wrong. That's the only way I can describe it. Nestled between typical rocky debris of the belt was something with straight edges, perfect angles, symmetry. Nature doesn't create perfect hexagons the size of burrows. I ran enhancement algorithms, trying to clean up the image. Each pass revealed more details that turned my blood to ice. The thing was dark, darker than the void around it, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. But along certain edges, there were points of illumination arranged in patterns too regular to be random. Thermal imaging, I muttered to myself, fingers flying across the keyboard. The screen shifted to heat signatures, and there it was, a core radiating energy unlike anything I'd ever seen. Not nuclear, not chemical, something else entirely. I reached for my phone to call Dr. Kapoor when it buzzed in my hand. Unknown caller. "Hello," I answered. "Dr. Reed." Not a question. The voice was male, flat, emotionless. "This is a matter of national security. Do not investigate further. Do not discuss what you've seen with anyone. A team has been dispatched to secure the data." "Who is this? How did you—" The line went dead. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, heart hammering against my ribs. How could they possibly know I was looking at this right now? Unless... I scanned the room, eyes darting to corners, vents, light fixtures. Was I being watched? The observation room had no windows, just one door leading to the hallway. Suddenly, the space felt claustrophobic, the air thick and heavy. On impulse, I copied the data to an encrypted drive, slipped it into my pocket, and wiped the terminal logs. If someone was coming to secure this information, I wanted my own copy, just in case. 10 minutes later, they arrived. 3 men in plain clothes with government badges they flashed too quickly to read properly. The one in front, a stocky guy with a military haircut and dead eyes, introduced himself as Agent Davis. "Dr. Reed, we'll need you to sign these." He slid a stack of papers across the desk. Non-disclosure agreements with severe penalties highlighted in yellow. "What is that thing out there?" I asked, not touching the papers. Davis's expression didn't change. "A classified astronomical anomaly. Nothing more." "Bullshit," I said, immediately regretting my boldness. "That thing has structure, intelligence." "Dr. Reed," another agent cut in, "this is bigger than you. Sign the papers, forget what you saw, and go home. Your country thanks you for your discretion." I signed. What choice did I have? But as they escorted me out of the building, I could feel the weight of the drive in my pocket. They might control the official narrative, but they didn't control the truth. The next morning, I called in sick. Instead of staying home, I drove to Baltimore to meet with an old college friend, Miguel Ortiz, who now taught astrophysics at Johns Hopkins. If anyone could help me make sense of this, it was him. Miguel's office was cluttered with books, star charts, and half-empty coffee cups. His eyes widened as I explained what I'd seen, careful to omit how I'd obtained the data. "Let me get this straight," he said, rubbing his beard. "You're saying there's an artificial structure hiding in the asteroid belt, and the government is covering it up?" "I know how it sounds," I replied, connecting the encrypted drive to his computer. "Just look." The images loaded and Miguel went silent. He adjusted his glasses, leaned forward, then back, ran some calculations. With each passing minute, his expression grew more grave. "Thomas," he finally said, "where exactly did you get this? Does it matter? What am I looking at?" Miguel took a deep breath. "If these readings are accurate, you're looking at an object with a metal content impossible for a natural formation. The thermal pattern suggests... it suggests some kind of massive power source, and these regular emissions, they could be communication attempts." "With who?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Miguel removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. "I need time with this data. Can you leave the drive with me?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Just be careful. I think I'm being watched." He laughed, but it died quickly when he saw my face. "You're serious?" "Deadly." As I left the building, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled away from the curb across the street. I pretended not to notice, but my heart was racing. They were following me. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city, taking random turns, doubling back on myself. Eventually, I lost the SUV, or thought I did, and checked into a motel under a false name, paying cash. That night, as I lay staring at the water-stained ceiling, my phone buzzed with a text from Miguel. "Call me, now. It's moving." I called Miguel immediately, huddled in the corner of my motel room with the blinds drawn tight. "It's adjusting its trajectory," Miguel said without preamble, his voice tight with anxiety. "I've been running calculations all evening. 3 weeks ago it was in a stable orbit within the belt. Now it's making corrections. Small ones, but unmistakable. Corrections. Like deliberate changes?" I struggled to keep my voice steady. "Thomas, this isn't some asteroid being tugged by gravitational forces. The movements are precise, controlled. It's like watching someone parallel park a car, except the car is the size of Manhattan and it's in space." I sank onto the edge of the bed, my legs suddenly weak. "Where is it headed?" A pause. "I can't be absolutely certain yet, but preliminary calculations suggest it's establishing a trajectory that would bring it into Earth orbit within 8 months. The room seemed to tilt around me. "We need to tell someone. The public needs to know." "Know what?" Miguel cut in. "That there's a giant artificial structure coming toward Earth? There would be mass panic. And who would believe us anyway? We'd be laughed off as conspiracy theorists." He was right, of course. We needed more evidence, more data, and there was only one place to get it. I need to go back to Goddard, I said. Get more recent images. Are you insane? After those agents warned you off? I still have my access badge. I can go in during off hours, download the latest Webb transmissions, and be out before anyone notices. Miguel was silent for a long moment. This is a terrible idea, Thomas. You got a better one? Another pause. Number. But I'm coming with you. 2 sets of eyes, faster download time, and I want to see the primary data source myself. We agreed to meet at a diner near the Goddard campus the following night. I spent the day lying low, changing motels again just to be safe. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, though I saw no obvious signs of surveillance. The diner was nearly empty when I arrived, just a few truckers at the counter and an elderly couple in a booth near the door. Miguel was already there, nursing a coffee, his laptop open in front of him. I've been thinking, he said as I slid into the booth across from him. What if it's not alien? I blinked. What? What if it's ours? Or Russian? Chinese? Some kind of classified superweapon or space platform that wasn't supposed to be discovered? I shook my head. No way. The technological leap would be impossible. We're talking about something the size of New York City. No nation on Earth could build and launch something like that without someone noticing. Miguel tapped his fingers against his coffee mug. Unless they've had technology we don't know about, way beyond what's public. Even then, I argued, the resources required, the launches, the manpower, it's not possible to keep something that massive secret. A waitress approached and we fell silent until she took my order and left. Here's what we know, I continued, keeping my voice low. The object has a complex structure, it's generating energy, and now it's changing course, apparently headed toward Earth. Those are the facts. Miguel nodded. I've been going through some older astronomical data, looking for anything unusual in that section of the belt, and I found something. He turned his laptop toward me, showing a series of charts. There have been anomalous readings from that region for years. Small energy spikes, unusual radiation patterns, nothing dramatic enough to raise alarms. But when you look at them collectively, it's been there for years. My mouth went dry. Or it's been waking up slowly, building power. We finished our meals in silence, both lost in the implications. At 11:30 p.m., we drove separately to Goddard, parking in different lots to avoid attention. The campus was quiet, with only security guards and a skeleton night crew on duty. My hands were slick with sweat as I swiped my badge at the entrance to the Webb data center. To my relief, the light flashed green. They hadn't revoked my access yet. We have maybe 20 minutes before someone notices unauthorized access to the Webb feed, I whispered as we slipped into the dimly lit control room. Miguel nodded, setting up his equipment while I logged into the system. The latest data dumps from Webb were heavily encrypted, more security than I remembered, but my credentials still worked. I began the download while Miguel kept watch at the door. Hurry, he urged after 10 minutes. Security just passed by outside. Almost done, I muttered, eyes fixed on the progress bar. 89%. The door handle jiggled. We froze. Hello? A voice called. Security. Anyone in there? I held my breath, willing the download to complete. 98%. The sound of keys jingling. The guard was unlocking the door. 100%. I yanked the drive free just as the door began to open. Miguel reacted first, shoving a chair against the door hard enough to send the guards stumbling backward. We bolted for the emergency exit, alarm blaring as we burst into the cool night air. Split up! I gasped as we ran across the parking lot. Meet at the backup spot. We'd agreed on a 24-hour diner in Washington, D.C. as our rendezvous point if things went wrong. I drove there in a daze, constantly checking my rearview mirror for pursuit. The drive felt like it took hours, though it was barely 40 minutes. Miguel was already there when I arrived, tucked into a corner booth, face pale but composed. Did anyone follow you? He asked as I slid in opposite him. I don't think so. You? He shook his head. Let's see what we risked our careers and possibly freedom for. I pulled out my laptop and connected the drive. The files were massive, containing weeks of continuous observation data. I opened the most recent imaging sequence, and we both leaned in. The object was clearer now, Webb having captured it from multiple angles. Its surface was dark, textured with what appeared to be deliberate patterns, not random cratering or natural formations. The hexagonal shape had segments that seemed to shift and realign, like a massive puzzle box reconfiguring itself. But what made my blood run cold was the new data on its movement. Miguel's calculations had been right. It was on a direct course for Earth now, no longer hiding its intentions. "Look at the energy readings," Miguel whispered, pointing to a scrolling set of numbers. "It's powering up something. The output has tripled since your first readings." "What the hell is it doing?" I murmured, more to myself than to him. "I don't know, but we're not the only ones watching it." Miguel turned the screen to show me a different data set. These are tracking signatures from multiple Earth-based observatories, all suddenly focused on that exact spot in the belt. Everyone who has the capability to see this thing is watching it now. "So why isn't anyone saying anything publicly?" Miguel's expression was grim. "Same reason those agents tried to shut you up. Whatever's coming, the powers that be don't want people to know about it." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Leave the diner now, they're coming for you." I showed Miguel, blood pounding in my ears. "Who the hell?" he began, but I was already shutting down the laptop, shoving it into my bag. Through the diner's windows, I saw 3 black SUVs pulling into the parking lot. "Back door," I hissed, throwing cash on the table as we slid out of the booth. We barely made it to my car before men in suits poured into the diner. As I peeled out of the back alley, hands shaking on the wheel, one thought kept spinning through my mind. What do you do when the end of the world is coming and no one will let you warn people about it? We drove in tense silence, weaving through back streets of DC until we were confident no one was following us. Rain began to fall, gentle at first, then a downpour that shrouded the city in a grey veil. It felt appropriate. "Who sent that text?" Miguel asked finally, his face illuminated by the glow of his phone as he scanned through the data we'd stolen. "I have no idea," I admitted, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "But they saved our asses back there. Could be someone from inside NASA, someone else who knows." I nodded. It made sense. We couldn't be the only ones who had seen the object. There had to be others, astronomers, analysts, technicians who had pieced together what was happening. "We need somewhere safe to analyze this data properly," Miguel said. "Somewhere off the grid." I thought for a moment. "My Uncle Rob has a cabin in the Catoctin Mountains. No internet, minimal electricity, but it's isolated. He lets me use it whenever I want." Miguel looked up from his phone. "How far?" "About an hour north of here, near Thurmont." "Let's do it." I stopped at an ATM and withdrew the maximum amount of cash. We couldn't risk credit card trails. Then at a gas station to fill up and grab supplies. While Miguel loaded up on energy drinks and snacks, I ducked into the restroom and stared at my haggard reflection in the grimy mirror. What the hell was I doing? 3 days ago, I was a respected NASA scientist with a comfortable life. Now I was on the run, hunted by shadowy government agents with evidence of, what? An alien structure, a doomsday weapon. Whatever it was headed for Earth, and for some reason, powerful people wanted to keep that quiet. My phone buzzed again, the same unknown number. "They're tracking your phones, ditch them now." I showed Miguel when I returned to the car. "Shit," he muttered, immediately powering off his device. "They're right. Our phones have GPS." We stopped at a truck stop a few miles later and tossed both phones into a dumpster. I felt a pang watching my connection to the normal world disappear under coffee grounds and fast food wrappers, but we couldn't take chances. The drive to the cabin was nerve-wracking. Every set of headlights in the rearview mirror made my heart skip. The rain intensified as we climbed into the mountains, visibility dropping to mere feet in front of us. Twice I nearly missed the turnoff to the unmarked dirt road that led to Uncle Rob's property. The cabin appeared out of the darkness, a solid shadow among trees. Small, rustic, with a stone chimney and wraparound porch, perfect for disappearing. "Home sweet home," I said, killing the engine. Inside it was musty but clean. Uncle Rob maintained it well, though he rarely used it himself these days. A main room with a stone fireplace, kitchenette, 2 small bedrooms, and a bathroom with temperamental plumbing. The electricity came from a generator and solar panels, enough to power lights and my laptop at least for a while. Miguel immediately set to work at the wooden dining table while I got a fire going. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. I checked all the windows, drawing curtains across them, before joining him. "This is unbelievable," he murmured, eyes fixed on the screen. "Look at this spectrographic analysis." The data showed the object's composition, or tried to. The readings were contradictory, impossible. Materials that shouldn't exist together, density measurements that defied physics. "It's like it's changing," I said, peering at the shifting data. "Reconfiguring its molecular structure somehow." "That's not even the weirdest part." Miguel pulled up another file. "These are radiation measurements from its core. See this pattern? It's regular, too regular." I studied the wavelength patterns, and cold realization dawned. It's a signal. Exactly. Whatever this thing is, it's transmitting. And recently, the transmission strength has increased by an order of magnitude. Transmitting to whom? Miguel looked at me, his expression grim. That's what keeps me up at night. We worked through the files methodically, organizing them, cross-referencing, looking for patterns. Hours passed. The storm outside intensified, rain hammering the roof like impatient fingers. Around 3 a.m., I made coffee on the propane stove, the familiar ritual almost comically normal in our surreal situation. "I think I found something," Miguel called from the table. "These energy fluctuations, they're cyclical, and they're speeding up." I looked over his shoulder at the graph. He was right. Whatever power source drove the object was pulsing, the intervals between pulses steadily decreasing. What does that mean? It could be preparing for something, a major energy expenditure. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Thomas, based on its current trajectory and velocity, this thing will reach Earth orbit in approximately 7 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. The coffee mug nearly slipped from my hand. That soon? And given its acceleration pattern, it could be even sooner. A branch scraped against a window, making us both jump. The isolation that had seemed safe now felt oppressive, the darkness outside absolute and watching. "We need to get this information to someone who can do something with it," I said. "The scientific community, the media, someone." "And tell them what, exactly?" "That we stole classified data showing a giant space object headed for Earth, and oh, by the way, the government is actively suppressing this information." Miguel shook his head. "We'd be discredited instantly, if we weren't arrested first. So, we just sit here while that thing comes closer? While whatever sent that text message tries to help us from the shadows? We need allies, Miguel. People who can verify our findings independently." "You're right." He closed the laptop, rubbing his eyes. "I have a contact at the Very Large Array in New Mexico. If we can get this data to her, she might be able to redirect some radio telescopes, confirm the signal pattern. Can you reach her without using phones?" "I'll need to use a burner phone, but just briefly, 1 call." I nodded. "First thing tomorrow, we'll drive to Frederick, get a disposable phone." We tried to rest, taking turns keeping watch, though I doubt either of us truly slept. The weight of what we'd discovered was too enormous, too terrifying. Every creak of the cabin's old wood, every rustle in the surrounding forest, had me reaching for the hunting rifle Uncle Rob kept over the fireplace. Dawn broke grey and misty. The rain had stopped, but fog clung to the trees, turning the forest into a ghostly labyrinth. I was making eggs when Miguel called from the porch. "Thomas, you need to see this." Something in his voice sent ice through my veins. I joined him outside, where he stood staring at my car, or what was left of it. The vehicle had been methodically destroyed. Tires slashed, engine gutted, electronics ripped out. On the hood, scratched into the paint with something sharp, was a simple message: "Stay here." "Jesus Christ," I whispered. "When did this happen?" I didn't hear anything. Miguel shook his head, face ashen. This wasn't random vandals. This was professional, military or intelligence. But why leave us stranded instead of just taking us in? Maybe they want us isolated while they decide what to do with us. Or maybe what? He turned to me, eyes haunted. Maybe whoever sent those text messages isn't trying to help us. Maybe they want us here, away from civilization, with the data. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the morning air. We need to get out of here, now. We gathered our essentials, laptop, data drive, some food, water, the rifle, and prepared to hike out. The nearest main road was about 6 miles away through dense forest. We could flag down a car there, somehow make our way back to civilization. As we were about to leave, the laptop chimed, a notification. Impossible. There was no internet here. We exchanged looks of confusion before Miguel opened it. The screen showed a single text document that hadn't been there before. It contained 2 lines. "Do not leave. Wait for contact at 14:30 today." The current time displayed in the corner of the screen, 9:17 a.m. How the hell? I began, but trailed off as Miguel inspected the laptop. "Someone's accessed this remotely," he said, voice tight with tension. "There must be a satellite connection I didn't know about. Can they see us? Hear us?" He shrugged helplessly. "I don't know. Maybe." We were left with an impossible choice: flee into the wilderness toward an uncertain escape, or wait for this mysterious contact who might be our salvation or our executioner. In the end, paranoia won out. We couldn't stay. "Let's go," I said, shouldering my pack. "Whatever's waiting for us at 2:30, I don't want to find out." We had barely reached the tree line when we heard it, the unmistakable thrum of helicopter rotors in the distance, growing louder by the second. "Run!" Miguel shouted, and we plunged into the forest. The dense trees provided cover, but also slowed our progress. The helicopter sound circled, sometimes fading, sometimes intensifying, as if searching. We pushed deeper into the woods, using the compass on Miguel's watch to maintain a northward direction toward the highway. After an hour of hard hiking, the helicopter sounds finally faded completely. We paused in a small clearing to catch our breath and get our bearings. "Do you think we lost them?" Miguel panted. Before I could answer, a voice spoke from behind us. "Actually, gentlemen, you've walked right where we wanted you." We spun around. 3 men in tactical gear stood at the edge of the clearing, weapons raised. Not military uniforms, something else. One of them stepped forward, lowering his rifle slightly. "Dr. Reed, Dr. Ortiz. My name is Dawson. I'm with a division of DARPA you've never heard of." He gestured to the laptop visible in my pack. "And we need to talk about what you've discovered." The question hung in the air as the helicopter began to descend. Below, a compound materialized from the wilderness, a cluster of low buildings surrounded by a perimeter fence, disguised to blend with the landscape. No road led to it. No power lines connected it to the outside world. It existed off every grid, invisible to casual observation. "I'm a pragmatist," Dawson finally replied as we touched down. "I believe in survival." We were escorted from the helicopter to the main building, a concrete structure reminiscent of a bunker. Inside, the contrast was striking: cutting-edge technology, multiple workstations, wall-sized displays showing data feeds, satellite imagery, and what appeared to be deep space telemetry. About a dozen people worked at various stations, all looking up briefly as we entered before returning to their tasks. "Welcome to Watchtower," Dawson said, one of several facilities monitoring the object. "How many people know about this?" I asked, taking in the operation. "Globally, fewer than 200. A woman approached, tablet in hand. "Dr. Eleanor Wright," Dawson introduced her, "Chief Analyst for the Watchtower project." "The object has accelerated again," she said without preamble. And we've detected new energy signatures. Dawson's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Show me. On the main screen, a series of images appeared. The now familiar hexagonal shape, but with new features visible. Sections that appeared to be separating, reconfiguring. It's changing, Miguel muttered beside me. Not just changing, Dr. Wright corrected. It's waking up. She pulled up another data set, energy readings that pulsed with increasing frequency and intensity. These patterns, I said, moving closer to the screen, they match what we saw in the stolen data. Because they're deliberate, Dr. Wright said. We believe they're transmissions. To Earth? Dawson asked. Dr. Wright hesitated. They appear to be directed elsewhere. A heavy silence fell over the room. It's calling for something, Miguel said softly, voicing what we were all thinking. Or reporting back, Dawson added. I studied the transmission patterns, recognition dawning. These aren't just signals. This is a language, mathematics, universal constants, prime numbers, sequential patterns. Dr. Wright nodded. We've been trying to decode it, with limited success. I need to see everything you have, I said. All your data, all your analysis. Dawson exchanged glances with Dr. Wright, then nodded. That's why you're here, Dr. Reed. We need fresh eyes. As they led us deeper into the facility, toward what Dawson called the war room, I couldn't shake the feeling we were being drawn into something much bigger than we'd imagined. The government wasn't just hiding the truth, they were scrambling to understand it themselves. And time was running out. Dr. Reed, Dawson said as we reached a secure door at the end of a long corridor. What I'm about to show you is beyond classified. Only 11 people on Earth have seen this. The door hissed open, revealing a small, dimly lit room dominated by a holographic projection. At its center floated an image that stole my breath away. The object, rendered in exquisite detail from compiled Webb imagery, rotated slowly before us. But it wasn't what I expected, not a spacecraft or station. It was a machine. A vast, intricate mechanism with components shifting, realigning, pulsing with internal energy. And at its core, visible through occasional gaps in its reconfiguring surface, something that looked disturbingly like an eye. God help us, Miguel whispered beside me. God, Dawson said grimly, may be the only one who can. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the holographic projection. The object, the machine, pulsed with an otherworldly rhythm, its components sliding and reconfiguring like a puzzle box solving itself endlessly. The eye-like structure at its core seemed to track around the chamber as the projection rotated, giving the unsettling impression that it was watching us. How long have you had this level of detail? I asked, finally finding my voice. 3 days, Dr. Wright replied. The latest Webb data package included multiple spectrum analyses that allowed us to composite this model. She manipulated a control panel and the hologram zoomed in on a section of the structure. These components here, they're moving faster now, reconfiguring approximately every 4.7 hours. 2 weeks ago, the cycle was around 26 hours. It's preparing for something, Miguel said, circling the projection with an almost reverential caution. Optimizing its configuration. For what? Dawson asked. I studied the eye-like core, a gnawing suspicion forming. Communication, I suggested, or observation. This thing, whatever built it, is studying us. A reconnaissance probe, Dawson murmured. That's one theory our team has considered. Reconnaissance for what? Miguel asked. The question hung in the air, unanswered. We all knew the implications. For the next several hours, we worked with the Watchtower team, analyzing data, comparing theories, searching for patterns in the machine's behavior. The facility operated on a 24-hour rotation, researchers coming and going, yet the atmosphere remained tense, focused. Everyone here understood the stakes. I was examining signal patterns when Dr. Wright approached with a fresh cup of coffee. You should rest, she said, placing the mug beside my workstation. You've been at it for nearly 10 hours straight. I rubbed my eyes, surprised to find them burning with fatigue. What about you? Do you ever sleep? A thin smile crossed her face. Not much since we detected the course change. None of us do. She pulled up a chair beside me. Find anything useful? I gestured to the screen where I'd been mapping transmission patterns. These signals, they're not just mathematical constructs. There's something else embedded within them, almost like dot. Like what? Like images, I said. Fragmented, encoded somehow, but definitely visual data. Dr. Wright leaned closer, eyes narrowing as she studied my analysis. You might be onto something. Let me get Dr. Patel. She returned minutes later with a thin man whose deep-set eyes carried the glazed look of someone who'd been staring at screens too long. Dr. Akash Patel, she introduced him, their visual data specialist. Show me, he said without preamble. I walked him through my process, explaining how I'd identified potential pixel-like structures within the transmission patterns. Patel nodded occasionally, asked clarifying questions, then sat down and began typing furiously. If you're right, he murmured, we might be able to extract these images, reconstruct them. His fingers flew across the keyboard. It will take time, but an alarm blared, cutting him off. Around the facility, screens flashed red. Dawson burst into the room, face grim. We've got movement, he announced. The object has initiated a major reconfiguration. On the main display, live feed from Webb showed the machine's outer layers shifting dramatically, panels sliding apart to reveal new structures beneath. The eye-like core was now fully visible, pulsing with intense energy. Energy output has increased by 400%, someone called out. Trajectory, Dawson demanded. Still on course for Earth, but velocity has increased. New estimated arrival, 97 days. The room fell silent. The timeline had just collapsed from 7 months to just over 3. Jesus, Miguel breathed beside me. What changed? Why accelerate now? I had a terrible suspicion. Us, I said quietly. Our observations. The intensive scanning from Webb, from other observatories. What if it detected our attention and interpreted it as, I don't know, as contact? You think we woke it up? Dr. Wright asked. Or triggered the next phase of whatever it's programmed to do, I replied. Dawson turned to Dr. Patel. How soon can you extract those images Dr. Reed identified? With the current processing power? 8 to 10 hours, maybe faster if I can optimize the... You have 4, Dawson cut in. I'm calling an emergency briefing with the Oversight Committee. We need everything we can get. As the facility erupted into frantic activity, Miguel pulled me aside. Thomas, I need to show you something. His voice was low, urgent. He led me to a quiet corner where he'd been working and pulled up a different data set on his screen. This isn't just about the signals. Look at these spectrographic analyses of the object's surface materials. I studied the readouts, confusion giving way to shock. That's not possible. That's what I thought too, but I've run the analysis 3 times. The data showed trace elements and isotopes that matched Earth's unique chemical signature, compounds that should only exist on our planet. It knows us, I whispered, or at least whoever built it does. Miguel nodded grimly. And there's more. Some of these compounds, they're artificial, man-made alloys developed within the last century. What are you suggesting? He took a deep breath. What if it's not alien, Thomas? What if it's human, just not from our time? The idea was so outlandish I almost laughed, but the data stared back at me, undeniable in its implications. You think it's from the future, our future, or an alternate timeline? I don't know, but these materials, some of them are definitely terrestrial in origin. Before I could process this bombshell, Dawson appeared beside us. Dr. Ortiz, Dr. Reed, the evacuation transport is leaving in 20 minutes. Evacuation? I echoed, alarmed. Why? What's happened? Security protocol, we're relocating all key personnel to our backup facility in Colorado. The object's energy surge triggered every warning system we have. 30 minutes later, we were airborne in a military transport plane, flying west with a dozen other Watchtower researchers. The mood was tense, conversations hushed. Dr. Patel worked feverishly on a laptop, still trying to extract the embedded images from the transmission data. "I've got something," he announced suddenly, drawing us around his screen. "It's fragmentary, distorted, but definitely an image." We watched as his algorithm pieced together patches of visual data, slowly forming a coherent picture. As it assembled, my blood ran cold. It was Earth, specifically a satellite view of the North American continent. But something was wrong. The coastlines were different, altered. Vast sections of the east coast were underwater. The Great Lakes had expanded, merging into what looked like an inland sea. The southwest was a barren desert, extending far beyond its current boundaries. "What are we looking at?" Dawson demanded. "Some kind of threat? A demonstration of capability?" "No," I said quietly, the terrible truth dawning on me. "It's a warning, a preview." Miguel's face had gone pale. Not just a preview, a memory. He pointed to date metadata embedded in the corner of the image, 2097. "This isn't a threat. It's a message from the future." Over the next hour, more images emerged as Patel's algorithm refined its extraction process. Each one more disturbing than the last. Cities underwater, vast swathes of land rendered uninhabitable, refugee camps stretching to the horizon. And interspersed with these apocalyptic scenes were schematics, technical diagrams, what appeared to be scientific formulas. "They're not just showing us what happens," Dr. Wright said, voice hushed. "They're trying to tell us how to prevent it. Or how to survive it," Dawson countered. As we flew over the Midwest, debates raged among the team. Was this truly a message from the future? A warning about climate collapse, as some of the images suggested? Or something more sinister, a psychological operation designed to manipulate us towards some unknown end? I stayed silent, pondering a different question. If this was indeed a message from our future, why send it encased in such an intimidating form? Why a massive machine that triggered every defense instinct we had? The answer hit me as we began our descent into Colorado. "They knew," I said, breaking into the ongoing debate. "The people who sent this, they knew we'd try to silence the message, to suppress it out of fear or political expediency. So they made it impossible to ignore, made it big enough, threatening enough, that even if governments tried to hide it, the truth would eventually break through." Dawson studied me with narrowed eyes. "An interesting theory, Dr. Reed, but it assumes benevolent intent. The alternative is what? That our own future is attacking us?" "Perhaps not attacking," Dr. Wright interjected, "but influencing, directing us toward a specific path." "What if there was a schism?" Miguel suggested. "Different factions in the future, disagreeing on whether to interfere with their past, our present." The plane touched down at a remote airstrip surrounded by mountains. Through the window, I could see another facility, larger than Watchtower, but similarly isolated. More researchers, more resources, all focused on the approaching object. As we disembarked, Dawson pulled me aside. "Dr. Reed, whatever theories you're developing, keep them within the team for now. The Oversight Committee is divided on how to proceed. The public deserves to know," I insisted. "If this is truly a warning about our future. And if it's not," he countered, "if it's something else entirely, mass panic helps no one." Before I could argue further, a junior analyst rushed up to us, tablet in hand, face ashen. "Sir, we've just received new data from the Deep Space Network. The object has... it's released something." On the tablet's screen, a grainy image showed the massive machine with a new feature. What appeared to be a smaller object, detached and accelerating ahead of the main structure. "An advanced probe," Dawson muttered. "Projected trajectory." The analyst swallowed hard. "Direct impact with Earth, sir. Estimated arrival in 31 hours. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dawson's voice, calm despite everything. "Where's the projected impact site?" The analyst zoomed in on a map. "Washington, D.C. The Colorado facility, Lookout they called it, erupted into controlled chaos. Military personnel rushed in from adjacent buildings, scientists huddled around workstations, and somewhere in the complex, a secure line to the Pentagon was established. Dawson disappeared into a conference room with senior staff, leaving Miguel and me with Dr. Wright and the rest of the research team. "How big is this advanced probe?" I asked, studying the grainy images captured by Webb. "Preliminary estimates put it at roughly 40 meters in diameter," Dr. Wright replied, pulling up the latest telemetry. "Much smaller than the main object, but still significant. Mass calculations are inconclusive. Its density appears to fluctuate, just like the main structure," Miguel noted. "Adaptive materials, reconfiguring constantly." Dr. Patel approached, his laptop tucked under his arm. "I've continued extracting the embedded images," he said, voice tight with urgency. "There's something you need to see." He set up at an empty workstation and beckoned us over. On his screen, a new image was forming, more detailed than the previous ones. It showed what appeared to be an impact site, a crater in the center of a city, buildings flattened for miles around. Overlaid on the destruction was a schematic diagram, complex notations in an unfamiliar script surrounding what looked like concentric circles. "Is that Washington?" Dr. Wright asked, leaning closer. "I believe so," Patel confirmed. "Or what's left of it. But the diagram, it seems to be highlighting the impact zone specifically, not just documenting destruction." "A target," I murmured. "They're showing us exactly where they're aiming." Miguel studied the notations. These symbols, some of them resemble mathematical operators, but evolved, modified. "A time-shifted version of our own notation system," Patel suggested. "If this truly comes from our future, their mathematics would have evolved from ours." I pointed to a repeating symbol at the center of the diagram. "What about this? It appears at the exact impact point." Dr. Wright squinted at it. "It almost looks like a key or a lock." The conference room door slammed open, and Dawson emerged with a military officer whose insignia identified him as a general. "Listen up," Dawson announced, his voice cutting through the murmur of conversations. "The president has been briefed. We have less than 30 hours to determine if this probe represents a direct threat. Dr. Wright, assemble a team to analyze all possible defensive options. Dr. Patel, I need everything you can extract from those transmissions. Full priority." "What about evacuation?" someone asked. "Washington has millions of people." The general stepped forward. "A limited evacuation is already underway, disguised as a response to a potential terrorist threat. Full evacuation is problematic." "Problematic," Miguel echoed incredulously. "We're talking about a potential impact that could devastate the entire region." "And if we announce that an unidentified object from space is about to hit the capital," the general replied evenly, "we risk nationwide panic, international destabilization, and potentially more deaths than the impact itself might cause. So we're sacrificing Washington to maintain order." I couldn't keep the anger from my voice. "No one is being sacrificed," Dawson cut in. "We're pursuing all options, including potential intercept scenarios. The Air Force has scrambled specialized units. The Navy has repositioned key assets with anti-satellite capabilities." "You're going to shoot it down?" Dr. Wright asked, skepticism evident. "With what? Our most advanced weapons weren't designed to target objects with this level of technological sophistication." "We have to try," the general said grimly, "unless someone has a better suggestion." The room fell silent. Then Miguel spoke up. "What if it's not an attack at all?" All eyes turned to him. "Explain," Dawson demanded. Miguel gestured to Patel's laptop, where the impact diagram was still displayed. "These schematics, the precision of the targeting, it's too deliberate, too specific. If this is from our future and they're trying to warn us about something, maybe the probe isn't a weapon. Maybe it's a delivery system." "Delivering what?" the general asked. "Information, technology, something we need to prevent whatever catastrophe they're warning us about." I nodded slowly, warming to his theory. The symbol at the impact center, it could be indicating something critical. Not destruction, but activation. A key, like Dr. Wright suggested. Dawson exchanged looks with the general. It's a theory, but not one we can bet millions of lives on without more evidence. Then let's get more evidence, I said. The probe will be entering near-Earth orbit in what, 10 hours? Can we get a closer look at it then? Dr. Wright nodded. We have high-resolution imaging satellites that could be repositioned, possibly even spectroscopic analysis if we get lucky with the angle. Do it, Dawson ordered, and continue extraction of those embedded images. I want to know exactly what this thing is planning before it enters our atmosphere. The next 8 hours were a blur of activity. I worked with Miguel and Patel on the transmission data, while Dr. Wright coordinated with military assets to prepare observation of the approaching probe. Coffee grew cold, meals were forgotten, and the weight of what was at stake hung over us all. I've got something new, Patel announced as our makeshift team huddled around his workstation. Another image sequence, but this one's different. The screen showed what appeared to be a cross-sectional view of the probe itself. Interior components labelled with the same strange notation, power sources, and at its core, a spherical object surrounded by complex mechanisms. What is that? I asked, pointing to the sphere. Unknown, Patel replied. But based on the energy signatures Webb detected, it appears to be the probe's primary payload. Miguel studied it intently. These configurations, they almost resemble quantum containment systems, but far beyond our current capabilities. A chill ran down my spine. Containment for what? Before anyone could speculate further, the facility's alarm system blared. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridors. "Attention, all personnel," a voice announced over the intercom. "Satellite observation confirms the probe has adjusted its trajectory. New estimated impact location, this facility. ETA, 64 minutes. This is not a drill. Proceed to evacuation points immediately." For a moment, we sat frozen in disbelief. Then chaos erupted as people grabbed equipment, data drives, personal items. "How did it know?" Dr. Wright's voice cut through the noise. "How did it know we were here?" The terrible answer was obvious. It had tracked us, followed our observations, our communications, our attempts to understand it. "Everyone to the transports," Dawson shouted from across the room. "Essential data only. Move." As we rushed to gather critical drives and equipment, I caught Miguel's arm. "This isn't random," I said urgently. "First Washington, now this facility. It's targeting the very people studying it. Or delivering its message to those most likely to understand it," he countered. Outside, military helicopters and transport vehicles waited, engines running. Personnel poured from the buildings, loading equipment, securing research materials. The sky above was clear blue, deceptively peaceful for what was coming. I climbed aboard a helicopter with Miguel, Patel, Dr. Wright, and several other key researchers. Dawson was the last to board, shouting final orders to the military personnel remaining behind to secure the facility. "Where are we going?" I asked as the helicopter lifted off. "Secondary backup site," Dawson replied over the headset. "Underground facility in Utah's Wasatch Mountains, hardened against, well, pretty much anything." As we gained altitude, I looked back at the lookout facility growing smaller below us. A secret base hidden in the Colorado wilderness, soon to be erased from existence. "Wait," Miguel said suddenly, eyes fixed on his tablet. "The probe, it's adjusting course again." "Where?" Dawson demanded. Miguel looked up, face pale. "It's following us, tracking our exact escape vector." A heavy silence fell over the helicopter's cabin, broken only by the rhythmic thump of the rotors. "How is that possible?" Dr. Wright finally asked. "Even our most advanced stealth aircraft can't—" "It's not tracking the aircraft," I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. "It's tracking us, or something we're carrying." All eyes turned to the equipment we'd hastily loaded aboard: laptops, hard drives, data storage units. "Everything off," Dawson ordered. "Power down all devices, now." We scrambled to comply, shutting down laptops, tablets, phones. The pilot received new coordinates, altering our course sharply. "Will it be enough?" Patel asked, voice barely audible over the rotor noise. No one answered. No one had to. Whatever this probe was, it possessed technology far beyond our understanding. If it wanted to find us, it would. "I think we've been asking the wrong question," I said, breaking the tense silence. "We've been so focused on what this thing is, where it's from, what it wants. But there's a more immediate question." "Which is?" Dawson asked. "What happens when it catches us?" As if in answer, Miguel's tablet, supposedly powered down, suddenly flared to life in his hands. He nearly dropped it in surprise. On the screen, text appeared. Not in the strange future script we'd seen in the extracted images, but in plain English. "Do not flee. Communication necessary. Survival dependent on exchange." We stared at the message in stunned silence. Then, more text. "Return to facility. Prepare for contact. 47 minutes remaining." Dawson had gone pale. "It's talking to us, directly." Miguel's fingers hovered over the tablet screen. "Should I respond?" "Wait," I said, studying the message. "Notice the language. Communication necessary. Survival dependent. These aren't threats. They're pleas." Dr. Wright nodded slowly. "If this is truly from our future, trying to warn us about something catastrophic, then running away is the worst thing we could do," I finished. Dawson was on the helicopter's comm system, speaking urgently with someone, presumably higher command. After a tense exchange, he turned back to us. "We've been ordered to continue to the backup facility. The President has authorized a missile intercept of the probe before it reaches US airspace." "No," Miguel and I shouted almost simultaneously. "You can't shoot it down," I insisted. "If there's even a chance this is a warning from our future, a desperate attempt to prevent some catastrophe—" "That's not my call to make, Dr. Reed," Dawson replied, though I could see doubt in his eyes. Miguel held up the tablet. "It found us once, it will find us again. Our only choice is to understand what it wants." The tablet flickered, new text appearing. "Missiles ineffective. Impact imminent. Last chance for controlled exchange." Dawson stared at the message, then made a decision. He turned to the pilot. "Take us back to lookout. Now." The helicopter banked sharply, turning back toward the lookout facility. Through the window, I could see 2 other transport choppers following our lead. Not everyone had received the order to return. Several aircraft continued on their original flight path, growing smaller on the horizon. "This is insane," Dr. Wright muttered beside me. "We're flying towards something that could vaporize us on impact." "If it wanted to destroy us, it wouldn't be sending messages," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Miguel's tablet continued to display text, as if the probe could somehow hear our conversation. "Preparation protocols initiating. Maintain distance of 500 meters from facility center upon arrival." The pilot's voice crackled over our headsets. "Command reports multiple bogies approaching. Fighter jets. They're still planning to intercept." Dawson grabbed the radio. "This is Dawson. Authorization Zulu Victor 9-7. Tell them to stand down. The probe is communicating. I repeat, we have established communication." A tense pause, then, "Command acknowledges, sir. Fighters are holding position but remaining on station." As we approached lookout, I could see the facility had been completely evacuated. The building stood empty beneath the clear Colorado sky, silent witnesses to whatever was about to unfold. We touched down on a helipad at the periphery of the complex, exactly 500 meters from the main building as the probe had instructed. The other helicopters landed nearby. No one moved to exit immediately, all eyes fixed on the sky above. 12 minutes to impact, someone said over the comms. Miguel's tablet flashed again. "Exit aircraft, bring communication device to open ground." We exchanged nervous glances, then Dawson nodded. "Dr. Ortiz, Dr. Reed, Dr. Wright with me. Everyone else stay aboard until we determine it's safe." The mountain air was crisp and cool as we stepped onto the helipad. Miguel clutched his tablet like a lifeline. Above us, the sky remained clear, offering no visual sign of the approaching probe. "Should we say something?" Dr. Wright asked. Miguel hesitantly typed on the tablet. "We are here. We want to understand." The response was immediate. "Preparation nearly complete. Stand by for arrival." In the distance, I could see the silhouettes of fighter jets circling, weapons systems undoubtedly locked and ready. The military wasn't taking chances, despite Dawson's order to stand down. 5 minutes, Patel called from the helicopter doorway, checking a handheld tracker. I scanned the sky, heart pounding in my chest. Whatever was coming, whatever this probe wanted, we were about to find out. "There!" Dawson pointed straight up. At first, I saw nothing. Then a dot of darkness against the blue, growing larger by the second. Not falling like a meteor, but descending with purpose, controlling its approach. "Jesus," Miguel whispered beside me. "It's beautiful." And it was. As the probe drew closer, its surface caught the sunlight, revealing intricate patterns that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. No seams, no joints, just a perfect spheroid of material that seemed to defy conventional engineering. Nothing like the crude impression we'd received from Webb's distant images. "Energy readings are off the charts," Patel reported from the helicopter, "but contained, controlled." The tableau was surreal. 4 of us standing exposed on a helipad while a technological miracle from beyond our understanding descended from the heavens. In the background, military helicopters hovered at a safe distance. Fighter jets circled overhead, all weapons trained on our position. The fate of millions potentially hanging on what happened in the next few minutes. At about 100 meters above the main facility building, the probe slowed dramatically, then stopped, hovering silently in midair. Its surface continued to shift and flow, sections reconfiguring, patterns changing. Then, without warning, a beam of light shot from its underside, striking the center of the main building's roof. "Take cover," Dawson shouted, but the beam wasn't a weapon. Where it touched the building, the structure changed. Materials flowed and reshaped, forming what appeared to be a receiver of some kind, a complex array of components sprouting from the rooftop. Miguel's tablet flashed again. "Receiving apparatus constructed. Prepare for data transfer." The beam intensified, the light shifting through colors in rapid sequence. The constructed receiver began to pulse in response, the 2 systems establishing some kind of connection. "It's uploading something to our systems," Dr. Wright said, checking her own device which was still connected to the facility's network. "Massive data packets. I've never seen anything like this." For nearly 10 minutes, the silent exchange continued. The probe hovering, the beam connecting it to the receiver, data flowing between them. Then, as suddenly as it began, the beam cut off. The probe descended further, coming to rest gently on the open ground between buildings. Miguel's tablet displayed a new message. "Exchange complete. Approach for direct communication." We looked at each other, the weight of this moment palpable. Dawson spoke first. "I should go. As facility director..." "No," I cut in. "Miguel and I have been studying the data from the beginning. We might understand better what it wants." After a brief hesitation, Dawson nodded. "Be careful." Miguel and I walked slowly toward the probe, which sat motionless on the ground, its surface still shifting slightly like breathing metal. As we approached, a section of its surface reconfigured, forming what appeared to be a doorway. "Should we go inside?" Miguel whispered. Before either of us could decide, the tablet in his hands displayed a new message. "Molecular scan complete. Thomas Reed identified as compatible interface." My blood ran cold. Compatible interface? What does that mean? As if in answer, a figure emerged from the opening in the probe, a humanoid shape that coalesced as it stepped into the sunlight. My legs nearly gave way beneath me as I recognized its face. It was me, an older version, perhaps 50 years my senior, hair white, face deeply lined, but unmistakably my own features. "Hello, Thomas," the figure said, its voice eerily similar to mine, but somehow hollow, as if coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We don't have much time." Miguel grabbed my arm, steadying me. "What the fuck?" he breathed. The figure, my doppelganger, smiled thinly. "I'm not really him, Dr. Ortiz. I'm an interface, constructed from genetic memory and neural mapping. A bridge between your time and ours." "Our time," I repeated, finding my voice at last. So it's true. You're from the future. From 2092 to be precise, 67 years from now. A future that should not exist, that cannot be allowed to exist. The images, Miguel said, the devastation, the climate collapse. The interface nodded. By 2085, Earth has become largely uninhabitable. Runaway climate change, resource wars, the collapse of global food systems. Humanity survives, but barely. Less than 300 million scattered in protected enclaves. And they sent this probe back to warn us? I asked. Not just to warn, to change. The interface gestured toward the facility. The data we've transferred contains everything. Detailed climate models, engineering schematics for carbon capture and atmospheric stabilization systems, clean energy blueprints beyond your current technology, agricultural methods that can withstand the coming changes. Why not just send the information? Miguel asked. Why this spectacle? The giant machine in the asteroid belt, the probe, the threat of impact. The interface's expression hardened. Because we tried. 3 times before. Each time the information was suppressed, buried by those with vested interests in maintaining the status quo. Powerful entities that prioritized short-term profits over long-term survival. It looked directly at me. This time, we made it impossible to ignore. Too public, too threatening, too visible to be hidden away. I glanced back at Dawson and the others watching from a distance. And the machine? The one still coming? A calculation engine, the most powerful computational system ever built by humans, launched as a last-ditch effort when Earth became too hostile for large-scale manufacturing. It's designed to monitor the timeline, to calculate if our intervention succeeds. And if it doesn't? I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. The interface's face, my face, showed something like sadness. Then it recalculates, adjusts variables, and tries again, no matter how many attempts it takes. Miguel shook his head. This is beyond anything we could have imagined. You have everything you need now, the interface continued. The data, the technology, the warning. What you do with it is up to you. It looked past us, toward the gathering of military aircraft. They're preparing to destroy this probe once I return inside. Let them, it served its purpose. Will I? I hesitated, unsure how to phrase such a strange question. Will I live to see this future? The one you came from? The interface studied me with eyes that matched my own. In our timeline, Dr. Thomas Reed became one of the leading voices calling for change. His testimony before Congress in 2026, his public advocacy, his scientific contributions, they made a difference. Not enough, ultimately, but they mattered. A pause. Whether that will be your path now, I cannot say. The very act of our intervention has already altered your trajectory. From behind us, Dawson called out, "Dr. Reed, military command is demanding an update. What's happening?" The interface stepped back toward the probe's entrance. Tell them humanity has been given a second chance. What they do with it is their choice. It fixed me with a final, penetrating gaze. The calculations suggest your involvement significantly increases the probability of success. Remember that. Before I could respond, the figure dissolved, its form flowing back into the probe's fluid surface. The doorway sealed seamlessly behind it. Miguel and I backed away as the probe began to hum, its surface vibrating with increasing intensity. "It's powering up," Miguel said, checking his tablet. "I think it's..." The probe lifted off the ground, smoothly accelerating upward. Within seconds, it was a diminishing dot against the blue sky, then gone entirely, leaving us with nothing but the data it had delivered and the impossible burden of what to do with it. As we walked back to the waiting group, Dawson's face was ashen. What did it say? I took a deep breath, the weight of the future, of all our futures, pressing down on me. It said we have work to do. 6 months later, I stood at the podium in the United Nations General Assembly, the weight of countless eyes upon me. The chamber was packed, Delegates from every nation, press from around the world, all gathered to hear the truth that could no longer be contained. The data is irrefutable, I concluded, my voice steady despite my racing heart. The technologies delivered to us offer a pathway to avert climate collapse, but only if we implement them immediately and globally. This is not a political issue, this is not an economic issue, this is a survival issue. The images played behind me on the massive screen, the future we were trying to prevent. Coastal cities underwater, vast dead zones where forests once stood, refugee camps stretching to the horizon. The same images delivered by the probe, now declassified after relentless pressure from a coalition of scientists, including Miguel and me. The revelation had been chaotic, as expected. Initial disbelief, accusations of hoaxes, religious interpretations, conspiracy theories. But the data spoke for itself. Independent verification from scientific institutions worldwide confirmed what we already knew. The probe had delivered authentic, transformative technologies that leapfrogged our current capabilities by decades. Not everyone was happy about this. Energy conglomerates saw existential threats. Political systems faced upheaval. The status quo was crumbling beneath the weight of a future that refused to be ignored. There had been threats, of course, attempts to silence us, to discredit the evidence. Miguel had narrowly escaped an accident that left his car a twisted wreck. I now travelled with security, a precaution Dawson had insisted upon after the second attempt on my life. Dawson himself had become an unexpected ally. Whatever loyalties he'd had to the systems of secrecy, they'd been superseded by the irrefutable evidence of what was at stake. His connections in government had proven invaluable as we pushed for disclosure. As I stepped away from the podium, the chamber erupted into a mixture of applause and urgent murmurs. The vote on the global climate intervention protocols would begin in an hour. Not perfect, but a start. Miguel met me in the corridor outside, tablet in hand as always. The latest tracking data came in, he said quietly. And? The main object has altered course again. It's slowing down, returning to a stable orbit in the asteroid belt. I nodded, understanding the implication. The future was watching, calculating, evaluating our response, deciding if we'd done enough to warrant a new timeline calculation. That night, I stood on the balcony of my hotel room overlooking the Hudson River, gazing up at the stars. Somewhere up there, beyond what my eyes could see, that massive machine, that watcher, was monitoring our every move, measuring our commitment to survival. Would it be enough? Had we acted quickly enough, decisively enough, to alter the trajectory of our civilization? I thought about the interface, that older version of myself who had delivered the warning. In his timeline, I had tried and failed to make a difference. This time, with the advantage of future knowledge, perhaps the outcome would be different. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Projection models updating. Timeline divergence detected. Continue. I smiled into the night sky. A message from the future, or perhaps just Miguel being dramatic. It didn't matter. The work continued either way. The James Webb Space Telescope had seen something impossible in the asteroid belt. Something that had changed everything. Not a threat, but a mirror, reflecting back the worst version of our future and offering us the chance to write a different ending. I only hoped we would take it.